Hello, Tony, your deck architect here, back on my channel once more with another deck profile. Coming off of our coverage of the GOTY, our next deck profile entry is an update to a deck that has seen a lot of competitive success as of late. Here for an encore performance, today we're going to be revisiting the P.U.N.K. So for those who are unfortunate enough to have either forgotten or never heard of the P.U.N.K are one of the three archetypes released in Grand Creators, alongside the Exorcister and the Adventurer. Combining traditional Japanese art styles with a cyberpunk aesthetic, the P.U.N.K combined four distinct sub-archetypes into one cohesive deck, capable of seamlessly transitioning from one playstyle to the next to produce powerful multifaceted boards. And it's that explosive but flexible playstyle that has helped the deck rocket to tiered playability, as a standalone deck or combined with archetypes like the Therion. Now, in the interim period since I last covered the deck, Konami has released several additional support cards for the archetype, and these cards present huge potential for the deck going forward. Beyond just fleshing out the archetype further, these new cards up the ceiling of the P.U.N.K dramatically, allowing the deck more ways to reach its optimal endboards while still retaining a flexible means of getting to them. And that's what I'm hoping to cover today as I get through the deck profile. Anyway, I believe I've droned on for long enough. Without a further ado, let's get into the deck profile. Starting off our deck profile, we begin by revisiting the playmaking aspect of our P.U.N.K in our no P.U.N.Ks. Of our original lineup, we're still playing 3 of each of the no P.U.N.K Xayamine, no P.U.N.K Ogre Dance, and no P.U.N.K Foxy Tune. These 9 cards remain the core component of our combos, as opening any of the 3 provides us the means to put any 2 P.U.N.Ks onto the field for all of our plays. But on top of this engine, we also have a new addition to the no P.U.N.K in 3 no P.U.N.K Deer Note. Deer Note, while in hand, can reveal itself alongside any other P.U.N.K monster to summon either one to the field, while sending the other one to the graveyard. And if Deer Note were to be sent from the field to the graveyard, she can target any non-level 5 P.U.N.K monster in your graveyard and revive it. Now, as a level 5 non-tuner P.U.N.K monster, Deer Note synergizes fantastically with any of your level 3 P.U.N.Ks. Using her in-hand effect, Deer Note can either put another P.U.N.K onto your field or put herself onto the field without tributing. Choosing the former allows you to play beyond your initial level 3 starter, while choosing the latter opens you up to a level 8 synchro play. And since synchro summoning with Deer Note puts it from the field to the graveyard, this also triggers her second effect to revive any P.U.N.K from your graveyard. Assuming that Deer Note was summoned by her own effect, this would allow you to, at least, revive the P.U.N.K monster you sent to summon her for functionally the same result as choosing the former. However, because of cards like Rising Carp who can send themselves to bring her out directly from the deck, this potentially has applications to revive larger monsters as well, allowing you access to options like rank 8s or multiple level 11s in one turn. With that being said, there is a small debate regarding the number of Deer Note you should be playing. Despite the flexibility of Deer Note's revival, it does come with a restriction that you cannot summon a Deer Note again for the rest of the turn. This means that having multiple Deer Note may not always be optimal, as usually only one can be brought out per turn. But I'm choosing to play 3 Deer Note today for 2 reasons. The first is that you actually can summon Deer Note multiple times in a turn. You just can't do so after resolving her revival effect. This means that by opting to not use that effect immediately, you can continue to drop additional Deer Notes throughout your turn until you feel like you won't be using Deer Note further. This is actually incredibly relevant in some combo lines, as it can allow you to access multiple level 8s for select boards. The second reason is because Deer Note actually has a secondary use in the deck. I'll explain that secondary use later, but for now, note that Deer Note is an earth monster with 1800 defense. Needless to say, it's actually quite easy to burn through multiple Deer Notes in one turn, and given how useful she can be, you do always want to have at least one Deer Note left in the deck for later. Thus our reasoning for playing 3. Moving on from there, we then go on to our secondary playmaker in 3 Ukiyo-e P.U.N.K Shirakusai. Like our original no P.U.N.K lineup, Ukiyo-e P.U.N.K Shirakusai continues to be very crucial for the deck, as it allows us to fusion summon on our turn and synchro summon on our opponents. The former aspect is actually more important than before, as accessing our Rising Carp allows us to access a Deer Note and any level 3 P.U.N.K for a guaranteed synchro of a level 8. This actually has some really cool lines of play with some of our other new cards that we'll explore later. But nonetheless, the ability to be both a starter and a form of disruption is invaluable in the P.U.N.K, and thus, Shirakusai remains a 3-of in the deck. Lastly, for our P.U.N.Ks, we have one of each Doruri P.U.N.K Madam Spider and Gagaku P.U.N.K Wagon. These monsters have the capability to search for a P.U.N.K trap or spell respectively, which helps supplement our board with non-monster interaction. Now previously we were playing 2 Madam Spider, and that was partially due to the fact that we often preferred to have one in the deck for the effects of Rising Carp. But the introduction of Deer Note means that we can always recover Madam Spider from the graveyard instead, and thus we can be content to reduce her to 1. Inversely, we used to be writing Wagon purely for its name, but thanks to the release of a new spell for the archetype, Wagon actually has a worthwhile target for his effect that makes him somewhat key to our combos. Thus, he's a must-have at 1. With the P.U.N.Ks now covered, we wrap up our monster lineup with some supplementary monsters and hand traps. For the supplementary monsters, we're playing 1 White Dragon Wyverburster and 1 Black Dragon Collapse Serpent as an extendable package that works with the chaos elements of our Ogre Dance and Foxy Tune. Wyverburster notably is also a monster with 1800 defense and a light for a payoff we'll explore later. Then we have the 1 Shinobi Necro as the singular brick in our deck for a Hawk combo line we'll explore later in the combo component. Then for the hand traps, we have a pretty rainbow lineup. We have 2 Ash Blossom for search negation, 2 Veiler for effect negation, 2 DD Crow for graveyard disruption, and 1 Ogre for removal. This diverse lineup of hand traps is not only for the crossouts we are playing, but also to answer a majority of the current meta. Ashes and Veilers are obvious across the board, but DD Crow is key in the tier element matchup for stopping the graveyard fusion effect. Likewise, Ogre on a Gigantic Splight can stop a Splight player in their tracks, while also loading up the graveyard with another level 3 Psychic for Amazing Dragon's Bounce. Going into the spells, we started off with the most crucial addition to the P.U.N.K deck in the 1 P.U.N.K Jam Extreme Session. Now, jams are commonly referred to in performance as a melding of different performance styles, and P.U.N.K Jam Extreme Session embodies that fantastically. Combining the aspects of No, Gagaku, and the Joruri, P.U.N.K Jam Extreme Session allows you to, once per turn, banish a P.U.N.K card in your graveyard to special summon a P.U.N.K monster from your hand. This effect of P.U.N.K Jam Extreme Session allows you to turn any used P.U.N.K card into further extension for what is functionally a better version of Deer Note's first effect. And because Extreme Session is a spell, this also means it can be searched by your Wagon as a way to extend from him to your next P.U.N.K style. But that's not all. For up to twice per turn, if you would pay life to activate a Psychic monster's effect, you can draw a card as well. Given that literally all your Psychic P.U.N.Ks pay life to activate their effects, this functionally doubles the advantage generated by each of your P.U.N.K plays, while also helping you recover from some of the more costly effects of your deck. Furthermore, in the unique case of Shirakusai's Quick Synchro effect, this also allows you to chain block the on-summon effects of your P.U.N.K Synchros, to make things like an unstoppable Amazing Dragon Bounce on your opponent's turn. Now, while I personally am not playing more than 1 copy of Extreme Session, I do want to bring to attention that P.U.N.K Jam Extreme Session's first effect is a soft once per turn. This means that having multiple copies of Extreme Session actually allows you to extend multiple times in a turn, by simply replacing a used copy of Extreme Session with a new copy, to then banish the used copy for the new copy's effect. This is something that, while not widely necessary, can be a case to play multiples of this card if you choose. From there, we then have 2 Small World. Now, Small World may seem like an odd inclusion in the P.U.N.K deck, but given the rather unique card characteristics of our P.U.N.K monsters, Small World actually has a lot of crazy applications. For example, your level 3 P.U.N.Ks are only related to your Ash Blossom by their level. This means that you can use any level 3 P.U.N.K to then banish the Ash from your deck to grab into any other level 3 P.U.N.K monster. Likewise, your Ash Blossom is only related to your Deer Note and Wyverburster by their shared 1800 defense. This means that you can also use any level 3 P.U.N.K monster to grab into either Deer Note or Wyverburster via your Ash and vice versa. And since we're on the topic of Deer Note, it's interesting to note that Deer Note is only related to your level 3 punk monsters by their Earth attribute. This thus means that you can use a Deer Note to banish a level 3 punk monster to search for any of your level 3 hand traps. Furthermore, since Deer Note and Ghost Ogre are related by their 1800 defense, but Ghost Ogre is related to your Foxy Tune by the Light attribute, you can thus use a Deer Note to instead grab for a Foxy Tune as well. And that's just the beginning. Given the loosely related card characteristics of your punks to your hand traps and your other monsters, it's very likely that there is a small ward line to turn any monster in the deck into any other monster in the deck. This makes Small World one of the most flexible searchers in your deck, potentially capable of getting you into any monster that you might need for any monster that you don't need. Then, wrapping up the remainder of the spells, we still have the 1 Polymerization as an alternative way to fuse into Rising Carp, 3 E-Telly as a way to grab into our level 3 punk monsters, 2 Dark Ruler to turn off opposing boards, and 2 Crossout and 1 Call by the Grave for hand traps. Finally, wrapping up the main deck with the traps, we're still playing 1 of each punk trap in the 1 Jorori Punk Dangerous Gabu for effect negation and 1 Jorori Punk Nashiwara Surprise for removal that we can search with our Madam Spider. We're also playing 3 Infinite Impermanence for further effect negation as well as synergy with our crossouts. Going into the X deck, starting with our punk monsters, we still have the 2 Rising Carp and 2 Amazing Dragon, but we also have a new addition in the 1 Punk Jam Dragon Drive. Punk Jam Dragon Drive is a level 8 synchro that can be made using any Psychic Tuner and any non-tuner. This specific level and summoning condition implies that it's meant to be optimally made using a level 3 Punk Tuner and a Deer Note. When summoned like your level 3 punks, Dragon Drive can pay 600 life to search for any level 3 psychic monster from the deck. This of course can be used to search for any level 3 punk monster, but can also conveniently search Ghost Ogre as well. Furthermore, should Dragon Drive be in your graveyard and your opponent will respond to the activation of one of your punk effects, Dragon Drive can revive itself to your field. Now undeniably, Dragon Drive is a fantastic card. Its first effect is just good consistency, able to search for any level 3 punk to continue your plays. Combined with your Extreme Session, you have the means to not only search for any punk and then draw, but also immediately make use of the monster you searched for. Its second effect is just good recovery. Assuming that your opponent would try to stop you on one of the activations of your level 3 punk effects, Dragon Drive's second effect allows you to get a free 2700 body out of that transaction, for what can easily be turned into an Amazing Dragon for follow-up. This makes Punk Jam Dragon Drive a crucial part of your punk combos, acting as the final piece needed to allow you to access all of your punk styles in one turn. From there, we then have the 1 Chaos Ruler as an alternative level 8 that we can access, the 1 Psychic End Punisher as an alternative level 11 that we can access, 1 Shooting Riser Dragon for the quick synchro effect on our opponent's turn, 1 Sword Soul Sovereign Changing, and 1 Barone as level 10 options that we can make using a level 8 and a Shinobi Necro, 1 Hauka Fibrax as a means of accessing said Shinobi Necro, 1 Celine and 1 Access Code as a line for an OTK with Hauk, 1 Barricade Board Blocker as a means of recovering our Extreme Session, and 1 Hope Harbinger as a rank 8 that we can access whenever we amass 2 level 8s to our field. Now it's at this point that we once again reach the combo component of our deck profile. Now Punk is an extremely flexible deck, able to craft its combos from practically whatever hand you open, but a lot of these combos usually only require 1 or 2 cards to execute. Thus, for this combo component, I have 2 set combos to showcase, both of which end up with at least 3 disruptions. With that being said, if you do want more combos, let me know in the comments below, and maybe I'll actually revive that combo extender segment to do more combo showcases. Regardless, I believe that the deck is shuffled, the field is ready, so let us begin. Starting with our base 1 card combo, this combo only requires that we open one of the 3 original no punks consisting of Ogre Dance, Xayamine, or Foxy Tune, as well as a card to discard. Now why do I say that you can open any one of these? It's because any one of these allows us to access the rest. For example, let's say we open out a Ogre Dance and a Small World. What's going to happen is I'm going to activate the Ogre Dance, discarding it to search for a punk monster of which I'll add my Xayamine. I'll normal summon out the Xayamine and then pay the 600 to search for another punk monster of which I'll add the Foxy Tune. I'll then proceed to activate Foxy Tune's effect, discarding it alongside sending the Snarl to then special summon out a P.U.N.K from my deck, of which I'll summon out the Shirakusai. I'll activate Shirakusai's effect, paying another 600 to fuse it alongside the Zamin to then summon out a Rising Carp from my X deck. I'll then activate Rising Carp's effect, tributing it to then allow me to summon 2 P.U.N.Ks from my deck that are not level 8s, of which I'll summon out a Deer Note alongside a Wagon. Then I'll activate Wagon's effect, paying 600 to search for a P.U.N.K spell, of which I'll then add the P.U.N.K Jam Extreme Session. From there, I'm then going to activate said Extreme Session before then synchro summoning with the Wagon and the Deer Note to summon out my P.U.N.K Jam Dragon Drive. Now, 2 effects will trigger here. The first is the Deer Note in the graveyard, the second is the Jam Dragon Drive being summoned. I'm going to layer Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2 using the Jam Dragon Drive to search for level 3 and then using the Deer Note to revive my Wagon, of which I'll then resolve Jam Dragon Drive to search for a Madam Spider. Now, since I paid life to activate my Jam Dragon Drive, my Extreme Sessions will activate to allow me to then draw another card. From there, I'll activate the other effect of my Extreme Session, banishing the Deer Note from my graveyard to special summon out the Madam Spider, of which I'll activate Madam Spider's effect, paying 600 to then add a P.U.N.K trap to my hand. And since I paid life to activate another Psychic Monster's effect, I can then activate Extreme Session again to draw another card. From there, I'm then going to link away the Madam Spider alongside the Wagon to summon out a Hauka Firebax, of which I'll use Hauka Firebax's effect to then summon out an Ghost Ogre from my deck. I'm then going to set that trap and then pass turn to my opponent. On my opponent's turn, I have 3 disruptions. Obviously, we have the Ogre here that we can send to negate and destroy a card. Well, not negate, but destroy a card. We have the trap that we use, either the Dangerous Goblin to negate an effect or a Nashiwaru Rise to pop a card, but at any point we can also activate the Hulk effect as well, banishing it to then summon out a Shooting Riser. Shooting Riser on summon will then allow me to send a level 4 like Collapse Servant to the graveyard to become level 3, of which I can then use it alongside the Jam Dragon to summon out a Amazing Dragon to the field, of which now I have 5 different Psychics of level 3 in my graveyard to bounce 5 cards on my opponent's field, for what is a field wipe that probably ends their turn. Going into our second combo, this combo is a variation of the first, requiring very similar setup. The only difference, however, is that to set up the board of a Shirakusai and an additional monster for Rising Carp, we need to be able to do so without activating the Foxy Tune effect. In this case, we can use something like, for example, an E-Telly, which is the most efficient means. The way this combo works is I'm going to activate a card like E-Telly to summon out my Zamin, of which I'll then use Zamin's effect, paying that 600 to add the Shirakusai to my hand. Now, since I didn't normal summon the Zamin, I can instead normal summon the Shirakusai, paying the 600 to fuse the Zamin and Shirakusai together to summon out my Rising Carp, of which I'll activate Rising Carp's effect, tributing it to send summon out my Deer Note and my Wagon. Like before, I'll then pay the 600 to then search for my Extreme Session, activating the Extreme Session before then synchro summoning with my Deer Note and Wagon to summon out my Dragon Drive. Now, this is where things differ. I'm actually not going to activate the effect of my Deer Note at this moment, only activating the effect of my Dragon Drive, paying the 600 to add the Madam Spider. In doing this, I can then trigger my Extreme Session to then draw another card. Like before, I'm then going to banish the Deer Note to then summon out the Madam Spider, paying the 600 to explicitly search for a Dangerous Goblin in this case. And in doing so, I will trigger my Extreme Session once more to draw another card. Now, this is where things get creative. I'm then going to activate the effect of my Foxy Tune, discarding it from my hand alongside another card to then summon out a second Deer Note from my deck, since we didn't use a revival effect and are thus not locked into not summoning a Deer Note from our deck. In doing so, I can then synchro summon with the Deer Note and the Madam Spider to then summon out another level 8 in our Chaos Ruler, of which I can optionally use the effect, but the most important case here is I can then activate Deer Note's effect to then revive the Madam Spider to the field. From there, I can then link summon using the Chaos Ruler alongside the Madam Spider to then summon out a Hauka Firebax to the field, of which Hauka Firebax effect will then allow me to summon out my Shinobi Necro. I will then use Shinobi Necro alongside my Jam Dragon Drive to then make a level 10 Synchro or preferably Barone, of which I'll then activate the Chaos Ruler in my graveyard, banishing the Shinobi Necro alongside the Deer Note in my graveyard to revive it to the field. Now, since Shinobi Necro was banished, it will then proceed to special summon itself back to the field, of which I can then synchro with the Chaos Ruler once more to then make a Chang'e. I'll then proceed to set my trap and then pass turn to my opponent. On my opponent's turn, I of course have the Barone for negation, but at any point I can also activate the effect of my Hulk, banishing it to summon out a Shooting Riser. Now, in the same case, I can then send a level 4 to make it a level 3, but the difference here is that because I banished Hulk, this will trigger my Chain Yang as well to banish a card. And if I activate this Dangerous Gabu and negate an effect, and my opponent chooses to respond to this, I could then proceed to also activate the effect of the Dragon Drive in my graveyard, reviving it to the field, of which the 3 and the 8 here will allow me to then Synchro Summon with these two monsters to once again make an amazing dragon to clear my opponent's field. And that's going to wrap it up for our P.U.N.K deck profile. So, what are my final thoughts? Well, I think the deck has a lot going for it this format. With easy 1-card starters and a flexible means of getting to its end board, the P.U.N.K can very easily put up powerful fronts for very little investment. This not only allows it to play efficiently through disruptions, but also gives the deck room to play board breakers and hand traps in turn. And because of its ability to set up disruption in not only monsters but also traps, the deck is much more resilient to board breakers like Dark Ruler or Droplets. This gives it an edge against the rest of the meta that potentially could allow them to take games against the tier 1 threats. All that's left is for a good pilot to take up the P.U.N.K teachings, and I have no doubt that this deck will perform. But regardless, this has been Tony, your deck architect with a P.U.N.K deck profile. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time.